If you've ever been through an audit, you know that feeling, right? That pressure. But here's the secret. The real key to it all, an audit's success or failure is pretty much decided before anyone even walks into the room. So today we're going to dive into that blueprint, the architect's plan for a successful audit, focusing on that all-important planning phase.
This right here, this is the core idea of everything we're about to talk about. It completely reframes an audit. It's not some stressful pop quiz. It's the final exam you've already aced because you prepared. The whole point of planning isn't just about passing. It's about controlling the outcome. It's about building such a solid foundation that by the time the audit starts, the result is already a given. So, how do we build that solid foundation? Well, here's our game plan. First, we'll get into the auditor's code, the ethics of it all. Then we'll break down the three main types of audits you're going to run into. We'll hit the golden rule, independence, which is a huge one. Then we get strategic with risk-based planning. And finally, we'll build the most important tool in your arsenal, the audit checklist.
All right, first things first. Before we can even start thinking about schedules or what questions to ask, we have to start with the auditor's code. And look, this isn't just some boring set of rules. This is the bedrock. It's the ethical foundation that builds all the trust you need for this whole process to even work.
It really boils down to these two pillars. First up, objectivity. This means your decisions, your findings, they have to be based on hard evidence, not your gut feeling about a person or department. It's about the data. And second, confidentiality. This is absolutely critical. What you see during an audit stays in the audit. It belongs in the official report, not as break room gossip. This is how you build and keep your integrity.
Okay, so let's be clear. Not all audits are created equal, not by a long shot. The purpose, the pressure, who's involved, it all changes depending on who's holding the clipboard and asking the questions. So let's break down the three main flavors you're going to see out there.
First, you've got your first-party, or internal audits. Think of this as your company taking a hard look in the mirror. You're trying to find and fix your own problems. Then there's second-party audits. This is when you go check on a critical supplier to make sure their quality is up to snuff. And then there's the big one, third-party audits. This is when a regulatory body, think the FDA, shows up at your door to make sure you're following the law.
And this slide really nails the huge difference in mindset. An internal, first-party audit is like your company's immune system. Its job is to find issues early so you can get better. You want to find things. A third-party audit, though, that's more like an official health inspection. The goal there is enforcement, and the stakes could be your actual license to operate. Totally different ballgames.
Now, for an internal audit to mean anything, to have any credibility at all, there's one principle that you just can't compromise on. If you get this one wrong, the whole process is basically worthless. It's the golden rule of independence.
So what does independence actually mean? Well, the official definition says auditors have to be free from bias and conflicts of interest. But let's put it in simpler terms. You cannot grade your own homework. The person checking the work can't be the same person who did the work. Period.
And here's the perfect, most straightforward example. Why can't the warehouse manager audit the warehouse? It's simple. Bias. They have a massive conflict of interest. They're naturally going to be tempted, whether they realize it or not, to maybe hide or downplay problems that they themselves are responsible for. To keep things independent, you'd have that manager audit a different department and have someone else audit theirs.
Okay, so we've got our ethics down, we understand independence. Now it's time to get tactical. You've been asked to create the audit plan for the entire year. You've got all these departments, all these processes, so where in the world do you start? The answer is actually pretty simple. You start with risk.
Let's just be real for a second. You don't have unlimited time or people. You just can't. So you can't possibly audit every little thing with the same level of detail. If you try to audit everything equally, you'll end up doing a shallow job everywhere, and you'll probably miss the things that really matter. The only smart way to do this is to prioritize and focus your energy where the risk is highest.
And this table shows you exactly how that works. Look at a high-risk area, like a sterile filling room. A mistake there could literally hurt someone, so that gets audited often, maybe every 3 months. Now, a medium-risk area, like the warehouse, a mistake there might cost money, but it's not life or death. So maybe every 6 months is fine. And then a low-risk spot like the HR archives, once a year is probably plenty. It's all about putting your energy where the consequences of failure are the most severe.
All right, we're at the last and most hands-on part of our planning blueprint, actually building the checklist. This is where the rubber meets the road.
It's where we turn our big picture strategy into the specific tool we're going to use on the ground during the audit.
A good checklist isn't something you just write from memory. You don't pull it out of thin air. It's built on research, on homework, and there are two parts to that homework. First, you've got to review the department's standard operating procedures, the SOPs. You have to know what the rules are supposed to be before you can check if they're being followed. And second, you have to look at past audit reports. Were there problems found last year? Well, your first job is to make sure those problems were actually fixed.
This slide shows the huge difference between a bad question and a good one. Asking something vague like, "Do you follow the rules?" is useless. Of course they're going to say yes, and you've learned nothing. A good checklist item is a command to find proof, it's specific, it's verifiable, it demands evidence. Verify the temperature log for fridge A was signed twice daily. You see the difference? It's asking for a fact, not an opinion.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one question to think about. Is your audit plan a strategic map that's actually guiding your company toward improvement, or is it just a list of things to check off? Because a really great plan, one that's built on a foundation of ethics, independence, and risk, doesn't just check boxes. It truly points the way forward. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.